everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sheila G, the PAC, and today I want to go over my top 3 medications in dermatology that have the power to absolutely transform a patient's life, why we should use them, and why they should not be feared. Of course, as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for all things dermatology. Let's go. Let's start with the medication that remains one of the most impactful treatments in dermatology, and that is Accutane, otherwise known as isotretinoin. For patients who have severe cystic or recalcitrant acne, isotretinoin is one of the only medications that can not only clear the skin, but also have lasting permanent effects, as it may be curative in a lot of patients. And isotretinoin is the only medication that we have available that targets all 4 pathologic factors of acne. Isotretinoin is a systemic retinoid, which means it's a vitamin A derivative, and at the heart of its effectiveness is its ability to shrink and shut down sebaceous glands or oil glands, and most times up to 90% in patients, which is why it's so effective. And this reduction in oil in the skin results in not only treatment of current acne, but also it prevents future breakouts, leading to long-term remission. But isotretinoin, of course, has side effects and isn't without its potential risks. One of the most important considerations when prescribing isotretinoin for females is pregnancy prevention. Isotretinoin is category X, meaning that it's teratogenic, and that means that it causes severe birth defects in pregnant women. The risk is so high that the FDA requires that all patients register into a program known as the iPledge REMS program. And this, for females, requires them to go on 2 forms of birth control and undergo monthly pregnancy tests. And of course, isotretinoin has side effects: dry skin, dry lips, dry mucous membranes. We could see musculoskeletal pain. There's a lot of things that we have to monitor. I'm not going to go over, a comprehensive list, but isotretinoin requires commitment. We have to monitor for certain side effects, and patients are on the medication anywhere from 5 to 7 months. So it is a process. They have to be seen every single month. There's a lot of regulations for this medication. And with isotretinoin, there's routine blood work, different requirements in iPledge. It is a process, again, for both the patient and the provider. But if used correctly and for the right patient and monitored correctly, isotretinoin can be a radically life-changing medication for the better. I've seen it so many times where acne has such a severe psychosocial impact on a patient, and when they finally experience clear skin, they regain their confidence, and it just overall improves mental health. So keep that in mind. It can be a very life-altering medication. It can really save somebody. So use it wisely, but really consider its effects. Next up are biologics. Biologics have completely revolutionized how we treat chronic inflammatory skin conditions in dermatology, such as atopic dermatitis, psoriasis, and hidradenitis suppurativa. So what are biologics? Biologics are a group of medications that are derived from living organisms that are designed to target specific components of the immune system. And so they're designed to target the root causes of certain inflammatory conditions that basically come from abnormal immune system responses. So again, atopic dermatitis or eczema, psoriasis, and hidradenitis suppurativa. For example, many biologics target specific cytokines or immune cells that are involved in the pathways of these diseases. So we have like IL-17 inhibitors, IL-23 inhibitors, TNF-alpha inhibitors. The list goes on. There's very specific groups of biologics and what they target. That's for a whole other video. Of course, biologics are not just used in dermatology. There's certain ones that are used in rheumatology and gastroenterology, again to control certain inflammatory conditions. The reason why we love biologics so much and why they're so important is that they're not just targeted at clearing the skin, but they also halt the progression of the disease itself. And so we're not just addressing the symptoms, but we're also just altering the trajectory of the disease for the patient. So because of that, we can reduce the amount of flare-ups that a patient experiences, we can reduce scarring, and we can even prevent long-term disability. Now, when it comes to lab monitoring, not all biologics are the same. For instance, some biologics may require yearly tuberculosis testing, as some of them may potentially reactivate latent tuberculosis, whereas other biologics, such as Dupixent, for example, for atopic dermatitis, do not have any blood work requirement. It really depends on what specifically they're targeting and how they work. So the takeaway here is that biologics are incredibly effective and can offer long-term relief for patients who have struggled so much with other standard treatments. But of course, like with anything else, they have their own particular requirements. Not every patient qualifies to be on a biologic, and of course there are potential side effects. And then we have to consider dealing with insurance. That can sometimes be the most exhausting part of this whole process, but if you fight enough for your patient, potentially we can get them on this life-altering medication. Now, last but not least, let's talk about a medication that I've kind of noticed tends to make a lot of providers nervous, and that is prednisone. I really want to reframe how we think about this drug because if used appropriately and temporarily, oral corticosteroids like prednisone are not only very safe, but can be incredibly effective. So let's go over the basics. Our bodies naturally produce corticosteroids, specifically cortisol, in the adrenal cortex. Cortisol plays a critical role in regulating inflammation, immune response, metabolism, and even our stress response. In times of acute stress or illness, our bodies increase the production of cortisol to again regulate inflammation and maintain homeostasis. So prednisone is essentially a synthetic version of that natural response, and so it mimics cortisol's anti-inflammatory effects, but it does this at a greater potency and predictability. So when used systemically, prednisone suppresses pro-inflammatory cytokines, reduces leukocyte migration, and downregulates immune cell activity, and so that leads to a rapid anti-inflammatory response. And that's exactly what a lot of our patients need when they're in a very severe flare of an inflammatory condition or an acute crisis. So for example, patients who are experiencing a severe flare of atopic dermatitis or psoriasis, this may be very, very useful to them. For these patients, prednisone can bring immediate relief while we're in the process of planning and initiating longer-term therapies. But let me be clear that prednisone is not meant for chronic use in most dermatology cases. The chronic use of systemic steroids has risks, so we can see adrenal suppression, osteoporosis, glucose intolerance, different things like that, but that's not what we're trying to do here. When used in very short and controlled bursts, so anywhere from 5 to 14 days with an appropriate taper, prednisone can be very effective and very safe. Of course, we always consider patients who are not good candidates for prednisone whatsoever, like those who have uncontrolled diabetes, uncontrolled blood sugars, as that can definitely be a problem. The key is education, being educated as providers about these medications and how to use them, and of course, educating our patients. We have to respect these medications, but do not fear them. And that goes for all the medications that I mentioned today. These medications exist for a reason, and so if we really understand them and how to use them, they can really radically change the lives of our patients. So there you have it, my top 3 powerful medications in dermatology. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for all things dermatology. I'll see you next time.